All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to class. Good to see you all. Thank you, Caleb, for the wonderful work you're doing, encouraging the class, motivating the class, guiding the class through the right path. Thank you so much for the hard work. We are on a wonderful journey. Thank you, all of you, and good to see you again after a while. Good to see you, Ashinafi. Great to see you. Yes, thank you, David. Thank you, Adedoni. Adeduni. Thank you, Yvonne. Yvonne, it's been a long time since I saw you. I mean, you're always in class, but I have not been here to see you. Good to see you again. Nanfanello, yes, I miss you too, Jovia. Good to see you all. Marvelous. Good to see you. Amon, good to see you. Wow, good to see you. Keboni, good to see you, Enoch. Welcome to class. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited today, and I'm so excited because we are on a wonderful journey and we are going to expand our knowledge into the world of cloud computing and to deepen our understanding and our tech skills. Yeah, sometimes when you are learning computing, when you begin, there are certain concepts that you grasp from the beginning and you build upon it little by little. And sometimes when you hear of certain concepts that are higher than you get confused sometimes. Sometimes you feel intimidated sometimes. Sometimes you feel that it is difficult and only some people understand them. And you are wondering how it will be for you to also understand them. And sometimes we just have some assumptions over certain things that we don't know yet and all that. But little by little, step by step, we are going to get there. Okay. As tech professionals, we are going to build upon our knowledge and we are going to get to the top. We are going to be real professionals who understand tech, who understand concepts, who understand uh, all the fields that we are working in, who are going to be experts. And it is said that the expert today was once a beginner. The expert today was once a beginner. So today, you are going to begin a journey that will give you an understanding of cloud computing. And some of you here who are going to be experts, top experts in cloud engineering. You are going to be solution architects. You are going to do so much in the cloud. And today you may be a beginner. You may not know anything at all. And you are just wondering how you will get there, but you will, okay? The assurance that I am giving you is that you will get there. You will get there. You have the understanding. You are going to be that expert who is knowledgeable, who has the expertise and the skills to get to the top. And what I'm here to tell everyone here is that in the next 3 weeks, all of us are going to get the understanding of cloud computing. Yes, we are going to have those who specialize in cloud, but then everyone here in this class is going to understand cloud. We are going to understand AWS, at least the knowledge you need to move forward. You are going to understand it. And this cloud course that we are taking, it is fundamental to every field in tech. If you're a data scientist, you need it badly. If you're a data analyst, you need it badly. If you're in cybersecurity, you need it. Today, where the world is going to, I mean, where the world is moving towards, there are certain things that without understanding in them, you are going to be behind. And that is cloud is one of them. And so today we are going to learn something very powerful. For the next 3 weeks, we are going to learn something very powerful that will give us the understanding we need to excel in our careers. And we are going to be writing examinations in this particular course. And so this is an industry examination. It is a globally recognized examination. and you need to put on your A game. You need to be the best of yourself. You need to do your best to be able to acquire the knowledge, and you need to get ready to ace the examination. Yes, very, very important. And once you pass this examination, you are going to get a badge that will add a correct check mark to your career and open doors for you, and going to open other doors as well. And so nothing here is taken lightly. You need to do your best. We are here to encourage you. We are here to educate you, and we are here to help you. And you have to also put in your very best to understand it. So what we are going to do is to begin with the general understanding of cloud, and then we will dive deep into the AWS cloud service. And so day one, I'm so excited that this course is finally here, and we are going to get into this. And companies such as AWS, they have done a fantastic job in connecting the world and providing infrastructure, not just in one country, but across the globe, that allows you, individuals and companies, to have access to cloud services and cloud platforms to do all the things that technology is used for today. With AWS, you can manage satellites, you can manage robots, you can do data science, machine learning, you can control robots from different countries, you can handle IoT, do everything. So everything that cloud, everything that technology makes possible today can be done through AWS. That is why AWS and cloud computing is a career that people specialize in, and they are highly sought after. And today, everything is moving to cloud. And so if you are in any tech field and you lack the basics of cloud, you are going to be behind. Imagine you're a data analyst and you have AWS CCP as part of your resume. That is really good. It's going to help you. It's going to open a lot of doors. It's going to push you forward. It's going to let you stand out among the rest. And a lot of opportunities are going to be given, but you need to open your mind to learning, and you need to pay the price of learning. And this examination we are preparing for, it is an examination that requires your understanding of cloud and cloud services. It is an examination that requires your understanding of cloud and cloud services. It is not really an examination that will test your practical skills in cloud. Other certifications are for that, but this particular certification is to test your understanding of cloud and your understanding of AWS. And so after this course, you are going to really know what AWS is. You are going to really know how AWS works. You are going to know what AWS is used for, and you are going to understand the word of AWS, because that is what this certification is about. It is the entry point to the world of cloud, and it is the entry point to all of technology in the cloud, which is what is done and used around the world today. If you look at the map behind this, later we'll be getting into the AWS global infrastructure, and you are going to understand the massive infrastructure that AWS has put in place around the world to connect the whole wide world and to allow companies and individuals to have access to cloud services. So welcome once again to this course. I want you to open your mind. I want you to be ready to get into it. We are going to learn a whole lot, and I want you to record everything you hear, all right? Because you need to build the understanding, you need to get the knowledge to break in into the next level. This is your entry level into tech advancement, all right? Just like I said, when you are getting into tech as a beginner, an absolute beginner, what comes into your mind is typing and creating letters, and you upgrade to email, browsing the web. Uh, then you start thinking of advanced things like you've been hearing things. Even Excel is so hard for you. You've been hearing Excel and it sounds so difficult. And you open to Excel and you see only boxes and boxes and boxes. And you are just wondering what in the world you are going to do with these boxes. And they say it is important, but how will you get there? But with time, you're able to learn and you're able to understand. When you start, you're able to do one or two things with Excel, but you still don't really understand it. But with time, you understand it, okay? Then you start thinking of databases and you'll be wondering, so the Excel I've been doing, is it not databases? And you're going to learn that databases are more structured than Excel. And so you start thinking of databases, how you can create a database and all that, and you have advanced your knowledge, all right? So as you are learning, you hear of things, you are introduced to things, and you need to get yourself into them to get the understanding. And one thing about technology is that everything sounds scary, everything sounds advanced, everything sounds so difficult, everything sounds like it is so high to reach and hard to understand, but you will understand it, okay? Those of us who have built experience in tech, we have come to understand that even if it scares you, you just need to get into it and you will understand. Yes, and tech sounds more technical than it really is. It sounds more intimidating than it really is. It sounds more difficult than it really is. Okay. You hear of things like Kubernetes and containerization and virtualization and all these things. They sound some way to you as a beginner, but they are not that difficult. You are just not into it yet. Yeah. So as you get into it, you are going to understand. And once you learn databases, you're also wondering how you will write code because you've been hearing of coding and you've been hearing of Python and HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and are just wondering how you get there. Okay. But you will. It's a journey that we have all been on, and we can tell you that you will get there. You just need to keep on learning. And now you hear of cloud, and when you hear of cloud, all you've heard is IaaS and PaaS and SaaS, and that's all you know about cloud. And you are wondering what is cloud and what is, of course, you've heard of AWS, you've heard of GCP, you've heard of Azure, and you are just wondering how it works. All right. Yes, when it comes to cloud, this is a whole new world. And the advancement of modern technology opens doors to certain things, and certain pillars are part of the advancement of modern technology. Okay, things like AI and data science, things like cloud, things like IoT, things like 5G. These things are pillars of modern technology. And so it doesn't matter what you've heard, you just need to follow the path that you have seen and you want to build your career in. You need to follow that path and get into it. And once you get into it, you are going to understand them. Yes, you are going to understand them. So let's get into the lesson. I'm going to start by asking you a simple question. Do you have electricity in your country? Just put something in the chat for me. Do you have electricity in your country? You can say yes, and you can add the name of your country so that I know where you are from. Do you have electricity in your country? Electricity. All right. So Asa from Cameroon says, yes, I have electricity. Zimbabwe, I have electricity. Yes, Ghana, we have electricity. Uganda, we have electricity. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We all have electricity in our country. Now, when it comes to generating electricity, it is not, Wusi says, too many power cuts in South Africa. Really? I thought South Africa was better. It's Nigeria that we know to be leading in power cuts. Light out. And Ghana too, we have that problem. And I heard that Liberia too is having that problem. But I thought South Africa, you are okay. I didn't know that you too have that problem. Okay. Even Cameroon, wow. Wow, that's wonderful. All right. So yes, Nigeria, dear, we know you are leading. Yes. All right. So when it comes to electricity, every home needs electricity. Every business, every company needs electricity. Now, the question I'm going to ask is this. Would you rather manage your own electricity in terms of generating your own electricity, getting experts to manage your own power generation at home, and taking care of everything that makes electricity work? Would it be best, okay, taking care of all the infrastructure for electricity? Okay, think about all the homes in your country. Would it be best for everyone taking care of this electricity? And let's think about how electricity is generated through the dam and through the windmill and all those. So let's think about that for a second. Would it be okay? Would it be right for everyone to handle their own electricity generation? Or would it be best for us to have an electricity company who supplies electricity for us to pay as we use? What do you think? Let's think about generating electricity through the dam and generating electricity through the windmill. And let's think about the expertise that needs to get into electricity. Let's think about how to manage the current. Let's think about all those things. Will it be right for you to be supplied electricity and pay as you use, or you want to pay for the cost of generation, buy all the machines for generation, and handle all that it takes? All right. Someone says that it will be best for a company to handle it, and you just pay as you use. You see, the electricity bill you are paying as compared to how much electricity generation costs, what you are paying is very, very, very little. And you are just paying as you use. But then when everybody comes together paying that little, the electricity company is able to provide electricity and still make their profit. Now, today, when it comes to computing services, today we have moved from companies managing their own computing services into working with cloud providers. And these cloud providers, they have taken care of the infrastructure setup for the computing services, and companies just connect to them and pay for what they use. And so we are going to dive into the general understanding of cloud computing, and we are going to look at why cloud computing is beneficial, why cloud computing is okay, and why companies should use cloud computing. Now, when cloud computing came, companies have tested managing their own IT, and they have tested working with a top cloud provider. Okay, these are giant companies who have all the resources to provide. And so companies around the world have understood and have agreed that cloud is better. Companies have agreed and they have come to understand that cloud is better. And so in all of the industries that we work in all of our future companies and the companies we want to work in all the giant companies and the big companies and our dream companies that we want to work with, they are all using cloud today. As a matter of fact, a company like Netflix says that it is very difficult for them to manage their own cloud or manage their own IT infrastructure. It is very difficult because Netflix is so huge and Netflix needs access to every country. And managing the IT to deliver Netflix is a lot of work. They need to pay a lot to hire a lot of experts. They need to be buying servers and managing servers and doing a whole lot of tech things. And it is so much work. Managing the IT to deliver Netflix will take more than 50% of the time that it takes to run the company. So you know what Netflix says that let's work with AWS. And so AWS manages their IT, all the infrastructure they need. And all they do now is to pay for what they use. They don't even have to buy machines upfront. They just pay for the little they use. And so today, if you're enjoying Netflix, I don't know if you watch Netflix. I watch Netflix. Today I've been busy. I've not watched any. No, I think I just watched some 30 minutes Netflix when I was eating this afternoon. People are using Netflix all over the world, and Netflix is working through AWS. So AWS is what is providing Netflix to you. And so what the company themselves have decided to do is to use 100% of their time, maybe 98% of their time, to focus on what they do best and just use 2% to handle the IT by having cloud experts to manage their cloud. And so they pay for what they use. And this has made them get more time to focus on what they do best. And it has actually saved them a lot of costs because managing their own IT will cost hundreds of millions of dollars for a company like Netflix to run every month. But through AWS, Netflix is now using their time to do their job well. What do you think Netflix knows how to do well? What do they do well? What do they know how to do? What do they know how to do well? Who can tell me? So for Netflix, what do they know how to do well? Produce content. Yeah. So they want to spend their time. Peter. They want to spend their time running their business. Even when they are charging customers well, at least now they are charging and they are focused. You know, they are making profits. As you are paying, they are making money. But if they are overwhelmed with all the work, they will rather lose and they will not even get more customers. All right. So Netflix is saying that today, let us focus on what we do best and let's leave the IT management to the giant company. Just as in your company or in your house, you have decided to let the electricity company handle your electricity. If you were supposed to handle your own electricity, it would take more than 50% of your time. That would be so stressful. And so you are just paying a monthly bill. And it's good. It's good. So this is cloud computing, and this is what we are getting into with AWS. And we are going to start by looking at cloud in general. And after we have the general understanding of cloud, then we zoom into AWS. We have 3 weeks to complete this course, and we are going to do it well, and we are going to pass the AWS CCP examination and build a stepping stone to the future in cloud and in tech. Again, the examination requires you to have understanding of these things. However, when you are learning, you may need to have some practical experiences. When you are learning, you are not going to be tested on practicals, but the time will come, we'll be creating AWS accounts and we'll be doing some simple tasks in AWS ourselves to improve our understanding. So let's get into understanding cloud computing in general. Understanding cloud computing in general. Now, in this course, what we are doing is to break down the concepts and help you to understand them in simple terms. And so we are going to explain things and explain our definitions in very simple language so that you can relate to them, because we are targeting you having the understanding, all right, instead of just um, giving out definitions. So when we say cloud computing, what is the idea of cloud computing? In cloud computing, in simple terms, it is the use of computing resources provided over the internet. Okay, you can end there. So the use of computing resources over the internet is cloud computing. What do we mean by that? We are going to delve deeper and understand it. Now, we have understood that companies need computing resources. And I'll be mentioning some of these computing resources, and you are going to understand them. If not, you are going to learn them, because companies need these services or resources. Now, instead of companies having their own resources, as in purchasing their computing resources and managing their own computing resources, cloud computing is the demand for computing resources or the use or the request for computing resources for companies and for tech projects that are where these resources are provided over the internet instead of owning them physically or directly managing those resources. So this is the whole idea of cloud computing. Now, these resources, let's take them one at a time. They will make a lot of sense very soon. These resources we are talking about, they could include servers, Today, if you have a website and you want to launch or deploy your website, you will need a server to make that possible. Maybe today it is very easy to just get a hosting provider or a cloud provider to host your website for you. But a few years ago, you had to do that yourself. And today, not only servers for websites, there are special applications, there are a whole lot of apps and a whole lot of systems that we need servers for. And so these resources we are talking about, they are servers. They are also storage. They are also storage, databases, networking, software, and more. And they are all accessible remotely through the internet or the cloud. When you go onto AWS, you can request for storage, and AWS will provide you with storage services that you pay for as you use. Today, companies are rushing for this. Why you want to work tomorrow, they need this. Today, this is what is working and trending because it is so much better than you hosting your own or providing your on-premise storage. So on AWS, you can go in for a service like S3. Please type S3 in the chat for me. And if you have some time, add bucket to it. You can say S3 bucket to it. And once we get into AWS, you are going to understand that AWS has names for their services. I didn't say X, I said S. So most of you got it right. So when it comes to storage, on AWS, we call it S3. Okay, when we need servers on AWS, we can go for EC2. So your understanding of cloud and your understanding of AWS is to understand cloud computing first, then understand the names that AWS uses to refer to these services and how you can go in for these services through AWS. And you need to understand why. Why do we need cloud? Maybe as a beginner, you don't just understand it. You don't yet understand why or the advantages. But what we have concluded on is that in the whole wide world, companies have adopted this to be cost effective, to be more secure, to be much better and more reliable. And so companies are using this. So today, every tech professional is expected to learn this. Just like I mentioned with the utility company, such as electricity, instead of owning a generator, even with generators, you realize that it is even difficult to manage a generator. Of course, you can buy a generator to generate your own electricity. Companies can use plants to generate their own electricity. But do you know how much companies are complaining when the electricity company is not working? When companies are using plants to run their businesses. And sometimes we think of individuals rather than large companies. Okay, but these things we are talking about, these are services needed by large companies and individuals as well. If you were a factory, the amount of electricity you need to run, if you want to depend on a generator, you are going to lose. And so everybody wants electricity company. That is how the cloud provider works. The cloud provider is like that big company. And as we get into AWS, we will understand the vastness of AWS and their global infrastructure. Please type that in the chat for me. Global infrastructure, how AWS has set up not just in one country, but around the whole wide world to allow companies to connect from everywhere and to provide solutions to every part of the world. This is not a small work. This is massive. And those who built this company have really taken technology to the next level. And the leader of AWS is the richest man in the world. Of course, Elon Musk will take over. And so right now, we are looking at building the understanding of cloud. So with cloud computing, instead of buying and maintaining expensive hardware and software, you pay a cloud provider like Amazon. Amazon owns which cloud platform? What is the cloud platform of Amazon? And in this course, we are going to do a lot of Q&A, a lot of exercises, a lot of feedback, because just like we said, the examination is a knowledge-based examination. And so you are going to be tested of what you have learned and what you've understood. And when it comes to the examination, you are not allowed to cheat. And when I say you are not allowed to cheat, I'm trying to say that you are not going to be given the chance to cheat. Even if you're a cheat expert, you're not going to get the chance to cheat. All right. And so what you really need is to have the knowledge, then you are certified. That is why this certification is globally recognized, because it is a real certification. The moment you get it, it means you have the knowledge. So Amazon provides AWS, or Amazon Web Services. That is the name of their cloud platform. And then Microsoft. We all know Microsoft. What is the name of Microsoft's cloud service or platform? It's called Azure. It's called Azure. All right. Some people call it Azure. When I started, I was calling it Azure. Azure. Someone said it's called Azure. Azure. One Chinese man says, "What a funny name. Why did they choose such a name? Azure." Later, I started calling Asia. Asia. But then I said, wait a minute, I'm going to listen to Microsoft. Let them tell me how to pronounce it. So Microsoft called it Azure. So it is Azure. All right. Just like Linux, Linux is not really pronounced Linux. No, a lot of people pronounce it Linux, but it's Linux. Like you hear Kali Linux, it's not Kali Linux, it's Linux. Okay. So sometimes we pronounce things right. And you know the person who created Linux, his name is called Linus. So his name is Linus, Linus. That is his name. But the software he created is called Linux. All right. Then Google, what is the name of Google's cloud platform? Okay, so Google's cloud platform is called Google Cloud Platform, or GCP. That's all. All right. So these big companies, you know, Amazon is among the top companies in tech. Microsoft, Google, these are the giants in the tech industry. And Amazon took the lead, and Amazon built AWS, and AWS is leading. All right. Google has been leading the world in so many things like search and a whole lot. And today, new companies are popping up, like OpenAI is really disturbing Google search. But Google has enjoyed for so long, and they are still working hard to keep up. Now they are fighting to keep up. ChatGPT has taken a lot of the market from Google, and you can see that a lot is happening. So Facebook is also working hard, bringing a lot of technology. So some of the technologies we use in web development and all that, they come from Facebook, they come from Microsoft, and a whole lot. React, all these programs, platforms we use, you can see that these companies are working so hard. So Amazon is a leader of AWS and the creator, provider of AWS, and AWS is leading the world. So by leveraging cloud services, businesses and individuals can avoid the high cost and complexities of managing physical hardware and software, benefiting from a pay-as-you-go model where they only pay for the resources they actually use. So one of the top advantages of cloud computing is cost. I mean, cost is very, very important. Yes, there are a lot of advantages, and this examination, that is what they want to know from you, for them to know your understanding of the importance of cloud. Cost is a whole lot. Imagine the expertise Netflix needs to hire, and any company needs to hire to keep their IT running. It is very difficult and very expensive hiring experts and paying for machines. So as you study AWS, you are going to be hearing of capital expenditure and variable expenditure. Capital expenditure, variable expenditure. So please try and put that in the chat for me. Capital expenditure versus variable expenses or variable expenditure. Just put that in the chat for me, because these are some of the major reasons for cloud. And for cloud computing, we pay as we use. We pay on demand. We pay for what we spend. We don't pay for the whole thing. We don't need to buy the whole thing. We only pay for what we use. And that makes it much effective in terms of cost. And because of that, companies are using cloud. And so as part of the understanding you need, we have this pay-as-you-go model, which saves costs, and not just pay-as-you-go, but pay-as-you-use. You only pay for what you use. Wow. Instead of buying the whole thing so expensive and not using it, sometimes we buy machines and we don't use them. But with pay-as-you-use, you only pay for what you use. All right. So why cloud computing? Why cloud computing? Number one is demand for flexibility. In a fast-changing digital world, businesses need to adapt quickly to keep up with demand. Cloud computing provides a flexible foundation that allows companies to adjust their IT resources as demands shift, scaling up during peak times or scaling down when demands decreases. So why will companies go in for cloud computing? Number one, for flexibility. Because with cloud, one of the benefits of cloud is that you can scale on demand as well. Wow. And you can go in for certain cloud services that you don't even have to do the scaling yourself. You remember the story I told you some time ago about election 2012 in Ghana. I was managing Ghana's leading website for displaying the result of the election, and the whole country wanted to see the results. And all the servers that we were setting up, they were just shutting down by the second, just shutting down. We had multiple servers, even a cluster, they were just shutting down because the traffic was way too much for the infrastructure, for the hardware, for the computing resources we had. And those of you who have gone into the webmaster course, you have understood that the traffic on your service or your website determines the infrastructure you need. There are certain websites you cannot use shared hosting for them. It's unbelievable. But then there are some websites, shared hosting is what you need. You don't have to pay for something more expensive. But when the traffic comes, you need to upgrade. So let's say today there's election and your website has traffic today. So you go and buy dedicated servers, so expensive. And just 2 days from now, the traffic is gone because the election peak time is gone down. You have spent so much just for 2 days. With cloud computing, there is what we call auto scaling. You get more hardware, more infrastructure when you have peak times. And when the peak time is over, your infrastructure reduces or you reduce your infrastructure. And so you only pay for what you need and pay for what you use. And you are flexible. You don't have to be like the company I was working with where we couldn't serve our customers because we're just going down and off and off and off and off. Sometimes, even in your electricity company, you want to buy prepaid and they tell you the network is down. Sometimes it's because a lot of people are on the network. Sometimes in your university, you want to write exam online and the system is too busy. It's the same problem. They need to look at the infrastructure they are using to provide that service. So you see, a university needs IT resources. They need servers. They need databases. They need storage to be able to provide their online services to their student. The student needs to be on the go, have access to resources and school materials online. And even though the university may not be a tech university, they still need IT to provide that. So if this university is not making use of cloud computing, they are going to be spending a lot of money to manage the IT of the university. And they are going to have a lot of problems at peak times. Whenever there is serious examinations online, the system will be busy. A lot of people will not have access to it. So that's what we call scalability. Please type scalability in the chat. Scalability, scalability. So when we say scalability, we are just referring to scaling. You can scale up or scale down. Make it large, make it small as the demand comes. Cloud computing provides us this. This is why companies want to use cloud. Number two, we have what we call reducing infrastructure cost. Now, this university I'm talking about, where they need significant investment is in the machinery or what we call the infrastructure. So traditional IT infrastructure or setups require significant investments in hardware, software, and maintenance. Significant investments. There's a difference between managing the machines you have and acquiring the right machines for the work. With AWS, you have cutting edge infrastructure and all the load is managed for you. You don't have to pay for the infrastructure. You don't have to buy. You don't have to invest. You don't need to put millions of shillings and naira and cedis and dollars into it. Nothing. You don't put anything. You only pay for what you use. So think about that. So in your examination, when we are talking about why cloud computing, yes, safer. Why cloud computing? Think about scalability or flexibility. Think about cost, infrastructure cost. Cloud computing shifts these costs to a subscription-based model, letting businesses pay only for what they use and avoiding large upfront expenditure. This point doesn't make sense to anybody. Does this make sense to anybody? I just want to know. I don't know about you, but does this make sense to anybody? Absolutely. This makes a lot of sense. When you are managing a university or a school that is growing and you want to use technology, in this country alone, the number of schools that are thriving and the kind of technology they need to thrive are a lot. In all of Africa, the companies that are thriving, that are growing, that need technology to thrive and grow, they are a lot. And so companies are facing these problems. And so AWS provides all of that. And so when you get into AWS and you learn about their services and you understand their services, you realize that, oh, okay, so everything is here. Everything is here. I told you that with AWS, you can even manage satellites and robots and do machine learning and analytics and everything. You want to create an app where people have FaceTime. AWS is what will power that. Okay, maybe you didn't know that, but they are all on AWS. That is why cloud experts study AWS to know about all the 200 services and more on AWS and know how to provide them to companies because they are all on AWS. AWS has taken the lead. What AWS is providing today, it is beyond what you would think about in the next 5 years. They are there. You just have to find out. You just have to get into it and look at all the 200 services they provide, and you are going to be blown away if you even have what it takes to understand them. They have that. If you want to be at the cutting edge of technology, all the tools you need, they are already on AWS. They are. All you need is to understand them and use modern technology and be advanced and solve real world problems. This is the second why. The third why is competitive advantage. Cloud computing enables companies to focus on their core business objectives rather than managing complex IT systems. This focus, along with the ability to quickly adopt new technologies, fosters a culture of innovation. By leveraging cloud resources, companies of all sizes can stay competitive using the latest technology and scaling their operations as needed. Sometimes it takes about 5 years for you to hear about something. And later you realize that that thing was available 5 years ago. Where were you in 2006 when AWS started? Modern technology, there are a lot of things that you are now discovering, but they were already there years ago. So when you get into the cloud, you get to discover all that is possible through AWS. So another reason for cloud computing is that companies can focus on their core businesses. So the university can focus on what do universities do? What do universities do? So universities can focus on educating people rather than handling these complex problems. Just like the electricity company, it's better to let the giant company handle it. And you just pay for what you need and what you use. This is a concept of cloud computing. This is a reason for cloud computing. Next, we'll be talking about what we call the advantages of cloud computing. But before that, I want to play a short clip, and I want you to pay really close attention to this because this particular clip, I'm going to be repeating it throughout the whole course, and I want you to pick every information from it. Listen carefully, all right? Listen attentively and pick every information from it. So let me share my screen well, and we will continue. Make sure you don't miss any class. You are going to take a global examination, and you are going to meet requirements to take the test. So let's make sure we are prepared and we are learning. Of course, Michael, yes. If I play the video, I want to know if somebody is following. So if you are following, just type in the chat, I am following, so that I know who is following so far. So far, I want to know who is following. So Lois is following. Thank you. Franklin, Adejuni, Valentine, Asa, well done. I don't think I've seen this name before. Insindiso, Insindiso. Where are you from, Insindiso? Prince is following. Vusi is following. Vusi, good to have you. Baba is following. Norbert is following. Marvelous. Yvonne, Aglalui, Israel, Zimbabwe. Wow, wonderful. All right. So thank you all. Thank you for following. Thank you for following. Let's be ready to learn because this is going to take you to a whole new level. Once you have this understanding, you are ready to advance. Okay, this is another step forward, another step higher, forward and higher. That's where we are going. So just open your mind to this. Sometimes you've heard of these concepts, but you don't really understand them well, or you don't really know how they work well. This is a time to get that knowledge. So let's get into it. Let's learn And there's going to be a lot of tests. There's going to be a lot of Q&A, a lot of quizzes, a whole lot of getting feedback from you. Because before we say you are ready and before we let you go and meet the exam center, you need to be really ready. All right, so let's watch this clip.
Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources via the internet, with pay-as-you-go pricing. Instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access technology services such as computing power, storage, and databases on an as-needed basis from a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. Organizations of every type, size, and industry are using the cloud for a wide variety of use cases, such as data backup, disaster recovery, email, virtual desktops, software development and testing, big data analytics, and customer-facing web applications. For example, healthcare companies are using the cloud to develop more personalized treatments for patients. Financial services companies are using the cloud to power real-time fraud detection and prevention. And video game makers are using the cloud to deliver online games to millions of players around the world. With cloud computing, your business can become more agile, reduce costs, instantly scale, and deploy globally in minutes. Cloud computing gives you instant access to a broad range of technologies so you can innovate faster and build nearly anything you can imagine. From infrastructure services such as compute, storage, and databases, to Internet of Things, machine learning, data analytics, and much more. You can deploy technology services in a matter of minutes and get from idea to implementation several orders of magnitude faster than before. This gives you the freedom to experiment and test new ideas to differentiate customer experiences and transform your business, such as adding machine learning and intelligence to your applications in order to personalize experiences for your customers and improve their engagement. You don't need to make large upfront investments in hardware and overpay for capacity you don't use. Instead, you can trade capital expense for variable expense and only pay for IT as you consume it. With cloud computing, you access resources from the cloud in real time, as they're needed. You can scale these resources up and down to grow or shrink capacity instantly as your business needs change. Cloud computing also makes it easy to expand to new regions and deploy globally in minutes. For example, Amazon Web Services has infrastructure all over the world, so you're able to deploy your application in multiple physical locations in just a few clicks. Putting applications in closer proximity to end users reduces latency and improves their experience. No matter your location, size, or industry, the cloud frees you from managing infrastructure and data centers, so you can focus on what matters most to your business.
All right, so this video is very important. From time to time, I'm going to be playing it, and I want you to listen and learn, okay? Because, like we are saying, modern technology is available through cloud computing. And some of the advanced things in the world today, they can be done through cloud computing. Cloud computing has solutions to help you create powerful applications, power modern applications, and provide a lot of tech solutions in the world. There's technology for almost everything modern today through AWS. And so let's understand the concept of cloud and let's get into AWS. Once we get into AWS, You are going to see, first of all, their global infrastructure, and you are going to see their AZs. Please type AZ in the chat for me. AZ, however you hear it, just type it in the chat for me. You are going to see their AZs, yes. And AZ stands for availability zones. You are going to see their regions. You are going to see their edge locations, or what we call their data centers. You are going to see how vast their infrastructure is. Then you are going to see the kind of services that AWS is providing, and you get to know them one at a time. For this examination, you are not required to know all the 200 plus services, but there are some popular services on AWS that you should know, like S3 buckets or S3, like EC2, and some others that we will get into. So what we are talking about today is understanding cloud computing. And right now, we want to look at the advantages of cloud computing. All right. So the advantages of cloud computing, let's start with cost. Cost is always something. It's always the biggest advantage or benefit of cloud. So we have reduced capital expenditure to variable expenditure. One day I wanted to rent a building for a training program. I wanted to train some people in AI and data science and Python and cybersecurity as well. I wanted to rent a building. And the manager of the property said that he knows me. So instead of me paying for capital expenditure, I should rather pay for variable expenditure. All right, what does that mean? So for this capital expenditure that I was supposed to pay for, it meant that they were going to charge me like $3,000 for a month. Whether I get students for my program or not, because I was advertising on radio, I was advertising through flyers and advertising on social media, trying to get students for this particular class. So they don't care if you get your students or not. You just have to pay for the venue. Just like somebody renting the stadium for a show. You just pay for the venue. If two people come, you are still paying for the stadium. But this man says that he knows me, so he will rather convert the expenses to variable expenses. What does that mean? This means that I should pay $10 per student. This means that if I get 50 students, I'll pay $500. If I get 100 students, I'll pay $1,000. If I get 20 students, how much will I pay? If I get 20 students, how much will I pay? Okay, I'm waiting for you. If I get 20 students, 20 is $200. All right. If I get 20 students, I pay $200. If I get 1,000 students, I pay for the number of students I get. So they are charging me per student. Lucretia, don't worry. So now you think about the two models of the expenses. Would you rather want the capital expenditure or the variable expenditure? What do you think? Tell me. Which one would you choose if you had a choice? All right. So Williams is variable, Lucretius is variable, and Michael's is variable. Yes. So everyone is saying variable. I think that is good because it takes a lot of burden from you. You know how much it costs to rent a venue, and you are under pressure to get students or to get people or to sell tickets to uh, take care of the costs. I mean, that is too much, too much pressure. But if they say that they are going to let you pay for variable expenditure, it takes a lot of pressure from you. Of course, you still want a lot of students, but you are not under that pressure to find the students to make up the cost. And you don't mind paying when you get a lot. You don't mind because you've also made your profit from it. So cloud computing, one of the advantages is that it reduces capital expenditure to variable expense, or it converts capital expenditure to variable expenditure. It shifts the cost from large upfront investments to ongoing usage-based expenses. That is what we call the variable expenses, eliminating the need to buy physical hardware, buy servers or infrastructure. Still on cost, cloud computing provides pay-as-you-go pricing. You only pay for the resources you use, making it cost-effective. Lower maintenance costs. The cloud service provider handles maintenance, reducing costs for upgrades and repairs. As a matter of fact, you don't even pay for these things. So cloud makes the cost so good for us. Even in your home, I think you are using a prepaid or you pay as you use for electricity. And I think that is good because if they were charging you an amount, and especially if the amount is more than what you have been using, a lot of people will be complaining. But at least with this one, unless you have a fault in your electrical system, you only pay for what you consume and it makes life easier. So this is one serious advantage to cloud computing. And whenever you are taking this exam or any exams, and we are talking about the importance of cloud or the benefits of cloud or the advantages, this is one major one. Now, the next one is scalability. We've already talked about that. So on-demand resources scaling, resource scaling. Easily scale resources up or down based on demand without delays. Then we also have access to global infrastructure in terms of scalability. Now, cloud providers offer a vast network of global infrastructure. That is data centers worldwide, allowing businesses to deploy applications closer to their users, improving performance and reducing latency. This is powerful. This is powerful. AWS and cloud providers have what we call a global platform or a global infrastructure. And we'll be looking at this global infrastructure. It is one of the most interesting thing about AWS, and it is also one of the areas you need to really understand for the examination. Now, the way these cloud platforms work is that they don't just give you computing power, they give you access to their global infrastructure. This means you can take advantage of their global network of data centers. Those of you who have taken the web course, these terms are very easy for you. But the data centers are where the physical machines reside, where there are tens of thousands of servers that are being managed. And for most IT setups, even in this country, the Bank of Ghana owns a data center, and they have one data center where they manage their global traffic from. If you move to the cloud, we are not dealing with one data center. We are not dealing with one data center. We are dealing with a global network of high-powered data centers. And these data centers are grouped in what we call regions. And then in each region, we have AZs, availability zones. And in each availability zone, we have multiple data centers. So when we are learning about the global infrastructure of AWS, when we get there, you are going to see all the regions around the world that AWS has actually set up physically. And in each region, we are going to discover the number of AZs or availability zones they have. And in each availability zone, we are going to discover the amount of data centers they have. That is mind-blowing. With AWS, you have access to their global infrastructure. Not just one data center. You have access to any region. To deploy your system to any region and to any availability zone and in any data center or edge location around the world. And once we get into this, you're also going to understand that this gives a lot of benefits. Because, for example, when it comes to storage, your data is automatically stored at multiple locations in a highly secure network across the globe, in a way that AWS can tell you that we are giving you 99.999999999999% uptime or reliability. This means that even if there's a nuclear weapon that destroys one of their centers, it doesn't affect your data because they have securely networked your data across their global infrastructure. So AWS can confidently tell you that you have security, you have reliability through AWS. So because of their global infrastructure, It is very interesting, and it is very it allows companies to benefit a lot. This is one key thing that makes cloud attractive to a lot of companies. Apart from making use of the global infrastructure, you can also deploy your applications closer to your users. Wow. This means that if you want to build an application that should be used in Kenya, I don't know about you, but there are some apps that are used in only certain countries. They only work in certain countries. Not that they can't work outside, but they are designed for certain countries. So these particular apps can be deployed closer to the users. For example, I built a BC app some time ago for basic high school in Ghana. And this particular app provided past questions from the first year BC started in the 90s to date. And you realize that anytime BC is coming, students are rushing for this app. So this app used what we call the freemium model for monetization. We have a free version that gives you access to the system. You can see any past question at all and learn from it, allows you to learn. And we have a paid version that gives you access and more information that allows you to test yourself and get more results. And it's one of the most interesting projects I've worked on, which I'll be improving and making it better. But then this application can only be used by WAEC basic education students. It cannot be used by even the senior WAEC or the senior high schools. And I don't know how many countries in Africa work with WAEC. I just learned that Nigeria works with WAEC, but I don't know if Kenya, do you work with WAEC? Okay, of course, Kenya is not in West Africa, so I can't be asked that. So which country works with WAEC? I don't know. I know Nigeria and Ghana. I don't know which other country works with WAEC. All right. So you can deploy your app closer to your users. And even if it's an application that is used globally, it will still be deployed closer to your users because your application is going to be hosted at the nearest data center to your users. So users from, let's say, South Africa will be using data centers or the infrastructure closest to South Africa, and users in, let's say, in Kenya will be using the infrastructure closest to Kenya. Users in the US will be using infrastructure closest to US. And when we say this is so important because there is something we call latency. Please type latency in the chat for me. Please type latency in the chat for me. Latency, latency. All right. All right. So this latency is a very important term when it comes to computing and when it comes to networking and when it comes to the delivery of services online delivery of services. Latency is a very, very important term because it refers to the amount of time it takes for your users to receive services or to communicate with your service, the amount of time it takes, the amount of time it takes. Someone said that latency is a term that is used everywhere in technology, even when it comes to working with satellites. Sometimes a satellite can capture an image and send the image to a user on Earth, and probably the image was captured on Monday, but it got to the Earth on Wednesday. So the time it took for that data to travel, and in networking, in computing, we have learned, especially those of you, the seniors, you have learned that data really travels. So with this satellite analogy, the latency was 2 days latency. It took 2 days for the data to reach the user. I don't think you want your application to take 2 days to reach the user. This is an example that is out of the box. But then any application that you have, the speed, the performance depends on how fast the data can reach your users. And the distance between your users and the data center where the servers are located determines how long it takes. And so you don't want to serve your users from North America when your users are in South Africa. You don't want to do that. This means that it will take a long time for your data to travel. So the latency is going to be high. And when it comes to online services, you have to understand that online data hops from routers to routers to routers to routers to routers to routers to routers before it gets to the destination. So even what you think is fast goes through a lot of process. Although it is still fast, even if the server or the data center is far, but then to improve performance, every application needs to be super fast. And latency is an issue everywhere that everyone looks for. So what do you want to do? Do you want to increase latency or reduce latency? What you want to do is, let me ask this question first. Do you want to increase your latency or reduce latency? All right, so all of you got it right. You need to reduce the latency. Don't type increase. You want to reduce it. This means you want the time to be short and shorter. Let's imagine you are building an application like a FaceTime application, like what I was talking about. You know that the data travels across the internet to the other person. And when you are having a voice call, like right now that I'm speaking to you, do you want to hear my voice after 30 seconds or you want it instantly? Tell me. I don't know what you want. I don't know about you. You want to hear me after 30 seconds or you want to hear me instantly? That is what we mean by latency. You want to hear me in real time. You want to hear me now. When I say now, it has to reach South Africa now. It has to reach Kenya now. It has to reach Liberia now. I'm in Ghana. It has to reach every part of Ghana now. That is latency. So in some applications, you may think about latency and say, why is latency an issue? When it comes to certain applications, latency is a big problem. Have you ever had a call that it took time for the person to hear you? I don't know about you. I have had one. I don't know about you. Have you ever had a call that it took time for the person to hear what you said? When you speak, the person doesn't hear you instantly. It takes time for the person to hear. So what happens is that the person will be responding to what you are saying after some seconds, after you have said other things, and you are struggling to connect with what the person is saying, and it creates problems, and sometimes there are unnecessary pauses. All these are issues of latency, how fast data is delivered. If you are building up an application like an online game, there's a game I play on my phone, Dream League Soccer. That game is very addictive. You don't want to be playing a live match because on that game we have live matches and we have the matches you play with a computer. The ones you play with a computer, they are not difficult. I've gone through all the levels every time. Right now, I can never play with the computer and ever lose. It's like I've played it over and over and over. I've gone beyond that level. I have built my team. I have the best players. And there's no time that I'll play with a computer and lose. So I don't play that part anymore. But there's a live section where you play with real people. And a lot of people are very good with this game. And you need to fight hard to win. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult. And when you try playing, it's going to take all of your attention to play because people are good, especially when you progress in the tiers. So if your network delays for 3 seconds, they'll score you. So if you are developing an online game, you don't want latency to be an issue. Everything needs to be real time. So latency is part of what allows you to, what you benefit from cloud computing under what we call scaling. So you have access to their global infrastructure to be able to reduce latency, to be able to improve performance, to be able to deploy your applications closest to your users. When I get to number 5, we'll be going through 10 advantages, and then I'll pause at number 5. We'll take a short break, and then we will continue. And by then, I will hope that you are following and the information you are receiving, they are not too much to store because you need to understand these things. All right. So number 3 says that flexibility and accessibility. We are talking about advantages of cloud computing. And with cloud computing, you can access from anywhere. Users can access cloud services from any location with internet access, making remote work easier. Wow. Device independence. Compatible with various devices such as smartphones, tablets, and laptops. So it makes it flexible. You know, today we can work with teams from different countries. At Greater Africa, we have people in India, we have in Kenya, we have in Nigeria, we have people across Africa that we are working together. And so cloud computing makes accessibility possible and flexibility. And number 4, in Cameroon, yes, and we have students everywhere. Disaster recovery and business continuity. So one of the advantages, data backup. Cloud providers offer automated backups, reducing the risk of data loss. So like what I told you about S3, it does automatic data backup. It provides high availability, redundant systems, and multiple data centers, ensure continuous service availability. Wow. Please type redundancy in the chat for me. Redundancy. So sometimes there are certain terms that you need to look at. We've talked about latency today. We've talked about variable expense today. We've talked about capital expense today. Just type redundancy in the chat for me. And sometimes when we are setting up IT systems, we need to work on redundancy. Redundancy usually refers to our backup strategy. And how redundant our system is that if something fails, are we going to go off? Okay, so even in storage, you can even set up storage on your systems or the simple servers you use in your company to provide redundancy in a way that even if one hard drive crashes, your data is not lost. All right, so this happens, for example, in the hospital during operation and the electricity goes off. If there is no redundancy built, if there's no redundancy in their systems, what it means is that people are going to die because there is no backup system. All right, so the redundancy that we build, the redundant systems we build is to ensure that when there's even failure, we have backup systems that will take over. So number 5 here is advanced security. Cloud providers offer encryption, they offer firewalls, they offer multi-factor authentication to protect data. So the seniors, you've learned about 2FA, you've learned about MFA, and we've gone through all of these things. Then compliance support. Many cloud providers comply with regulatory requirements, helping businesses meet standards. That is so beautiful. So we are going to take a break now. I want to know if you are still following or you are lost. I want to know if you are still following or you are lost. This is our first lesson, and we just want to build some understanding. And in cloud computing and in this particular examination, we need to do our best to have the understanding. All right. So thank you very much for not running away or losing track, but you are following. So point 4 is the disaster recovery and business continuity. So like we said, AWS, when it comes to storage, they provide you with 99.99999999. They give you 0.119% of security or of reliability. So they make use of their global infrastructure to ensure that your data is backed up everywhere and secured in a way that no matter what happens, you still have your data. So they will tell you that unless probably the world comes to an end and the whole earth is destroyed. But when it comes to protecting your data, even when there's disaster, you can still recover your data. That is assurance that cloud is giving us and the assurance AWS gives us. And there's high availability. So that is what it means. So we'll take a short break. After that, we'll continue and we'll cover the basics of cloud computing today. And tomorrow we will zoom in into AWS and learn more. So thank you very much. We will we'll return at 8:10. Thank you, and I'll see you after the short break. All right. So welcome back to our AWS training. This is AWS CCP certification examination training. After this training, we are going to get certified and to prepare for higher levels and specialization in our careers. And by the time we complete our specialization, we are going to have certifications and opportunities that will help us to advance. And so we encourage you to learn hard, do your best to learn, pay the price of learning, and prepare yourself for higher levels and for opportunities, because you cannot get the opportunities if you don't pay the price. You cannot get the opportunities if you don't equip yourself and you don't learn. Great Africa is giving you the platform to get access to education and opportunities, what will cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to acquire. Through our network, we are making it possible. So you have to do your part and make good use of the opportunities. Our seniors have done so well to learn very hard to get to this far. And the new students too, we welcome you to take on the same spirit, the same attitude of learning hard and challenging yourself, working on projects and going through the process. In the end, you realize that you have been built for the future. You have been prepared for the future. So today we are talking about AWS, which is a very important cloud service that we need to understand to take advantage of modern technology and to move forward. And we've been talking about the advantages of AWS. By this time, you are getting introduced to the concepts of cloud computing, even if you've never dealt with cloud computing before. This is what the concept of cloud computing is. And cloud computing is in high demand today. Cloud computing is a career today, and there are a whole lot of careers within cloud computing that you can specialize in and get access to a lot of opportunities. All right, so as part of the advantages of cloud computing, number 6 talks about enhanced collaboration, real-time collaboration. That means teams can work together on documents, on projects in real time from different locations. And this class is a good example of that. We are different locations, but we are all connected and we are all collaborating. We can communicate, we can even work on documents together. We can work on the same document together using the platforms we have here through the cloud. And the service we are using to deliver this content right now is Microsoft. So on Microsoft, we make use of Microsoft 365 and Azure to provide our services. And AWS is the leading cloud provider in the world. And if you are learning about cloud computing, AWS is definitely the priority for now. And of course, you also get access to Azure before you complete your program. So enhanced collaboration, we also talk about decentralized data storage. So a single source of truth for data, improving collaboration and reducing version control issues. So one advantage is enhanced collaboration in terms of real-time and centralized storage. Next, we also have what we call automatic updates. When it comes to cloud computing, we have managed updates. Cloud providers handle software updates, patches, and security enhancements, ensuring up-to-date systems, reduce downtime, automated updates, minimize downtime, and service interruptions. So when you study cybersecurity and all that, you realize that updates are very important. And so instead of you to be managing the updates, cloud manages the update for you, which is a big advantage. Increased performance, we've already talked about low latency. With data centers distributed globally, cloud services can deliver lower latency and faster response times by serving users from the nearest geographic locations. Yes, we've already talked about that. what is important is to understand that the data center is actually where the machines are located. It's where the machines are located. And later I will look at the global infrastructure of AWS, and you get to understand how their whole network and their infrastructure works. Talking about improved performance or increased performance, we also have optimized infrastructure. Cloud providers use high-performance hardware and optimized networks to ensure fast and reliable services. So instead of purchasing expensive hardware with AWS or with cloud, you have access to the most high-performing hardware and optimized networks for the best and reliable services. Then it also provides load balancing, automatic distribution of workloads across servers to enhance performance. And with the story of the election 2012, I mentioned that we solved a problem with a load balancer. So we had to increase the number of servers, and then we had to use a load balancer to balance the load across multiple servers. And because of that, we were able to provide the election results to the country. And so it's allowed us to increase our performance and to deliver our service. So load balancing is a concept you'll be getting into as well in cloud, AWS. So when there is load, there is a load balancer that balances the load across multiple machines. So that is very, very important. Yes, it's like being in a long queue at a bank. You realize that those days we used to spend a lot of time going to the bank, and going to the bank was very annoying because you waste your whole day when you get to the bank because of the queue. With load balancing, it's like we having someone managing the traffic at the bank or the queue at the bank, someone distributing the load across multiple tellers and making multiple tellers available. And because of that management or load balancing, it makes it faster. So cloud provides load balancing as well. Then cloud is also environmentally friendly, energy saving, energy efficiency, shared resources, and optimized data centers reduce overall energy consumption, reduce carbon footprint. By using virtual servers, businesses can reduce the need for physical hardware and contributing to a smaller carbon footprint. So adopting cloud computing is also environmentally friendly, Very, very important. And I like what it was said about virtual servers. So on cloud, most of the computing resources we are going to be using on cloud are virtual servers and are going to be set up through virtualization. So if in your cybersecurity class last week, you talked about virtual servers and virtual machines and using VirtualBox and VMware and all these things, those are the foundational knowledge you need to manage cloud, because in the cloud, it's all about virtual machines. It's all about virtualization. So let's keep that in mind. And number 10 says innovation and speed. We have faster deployment. Services and applications can be quickly deployed, allowing businesses to innovate faster. Access to advanced technology. Cloud services provide access to AI, to machine learning, big data analytics tools without the need for specialized hardware. So innovation and speed. I told you that modern technology is available on AWS. You just need to discover them. And so by studying about AWS and cloud, you get exposed to advanced technologies and you can innovate and you can move faster and deploy faster. All right, so next we will be looking at
what is cloud
cloud service providers. But before we get into them, we have another video to watch. And this video is also detailed. I like the way the creators took time to make things easier to understand. So this is another video that we should pay attention to. So let's listen to the video. Let's learn from it. Let's make sure we pick some things. And what we'll be doing is that almost after every lesson, we are going to design a test that you'll be taking. And some of our lessons will be purely Q&A questions, because when it's time for the examination, you are going to answer multiple choice questions and to provide multiple answers. So most of the exam is just Q&A. So they ask you a concept about cloud or a concept about AWS, and they test your knowledge, whether you choose the right one. That is how the exam is. So you're not going to write any code. You're not going to deploy anything. You're not going to set up anything. It's just Q&A. So we need to be practicing a lot of the important concepts we learn. So after this lesson, we will design Q&A, and we will serve it to you at the right time, maybe tomorrow or whenever. But after every lesson, we'll have a Q&A to go through. So before we get into cloud service providers, let us take some few minutes and watch this very important video, and we will continue. So let me quickly share my screen, and we will learn from this. Please pay attention. This is one of the most important videos as well that will give you understanding. Remember, this course is all about understanding the cloud and understanding AWS. So make sure you understand this, and we will continue.
What is cloud computing? So that is the topic of this video. Now you may have heard of people talking about the cloud, such as cloud computing or cloud storage, but you probably weren't sure exactly what it was. Well, the term cloud computing refers to data and applications being stored and run on the cloud rather than being stored and run on your local computer or on any equipment that you own. Then this data and the applications which are on the cloud are accessed through the internet. So the workload is no longer on your computer or on any equipment that you own. It's on the cloud. So what is the cloud? Now, to put it simple, the cloud is just a big building that's filled with computers. To be specific, it's a big building filled with servers. And servers are just computers that provide services on behalf of clients. Now, these buildings are very large, and well, they have to be, because when you take a look inside, it's a giant data center that contains servers as far as the eye can see. And these servers perform numerous tasks, such as running applications, storing data, data processing, web hosting, and so on. And they are also all networked together, and they can be accessed on the internet. So what is the purpose of a cloud? Well, the companies that own these clouds are called cloud providers, and their purpose is to sell their computers as a service. Now, a service is just something that you pay someone to do for you rather than doing the job yourself. So if a person or a company wanted to hire another company to do part or all of their computing workload, they would outsource it to a third party. In other words, they would use cloud computing. So back in the old days, before cloud computing, and as an example, we'll use email. So at your home or office, if you wanted to use email, you would have your own physical email server. So you would have a server, an operating system, and email software such as Microsoft Exchange. And then after some configuration, you would be able to use email. But the problem is that if anything goes wrong with the server, such as a hardware failure or a software problem, or if the operating system crashed, then you would be responsible for fixing the problem, not to mention any maintenance that is needed to keep the server up and running. However, you do have the option of eliminating all the hassle and upkeep of your own email server and have another company host all of your email on their servers in the cloud for you, such as Gmail, Hotmail, and a bunch of others. But email is just one example of cloud computing. There are also other services, such as productivity software, web servers, databases, and even YouTube. So yes, you as an individual can use YouTube as a cloud. So if you're a video creator, and instead of building and maintaining your own video server and software, and the extreme high cost of internet bandwidth that you would need for people to watch your videos from your server, you can bypass that and you can just upload your videos to YouTube and let YouTube handle everything for you. But instead of directly paying YouTube like a regular cloud provider, YouTube will get a share of the ad revenue generated by your videos. So another question is, why would an individual or a company use cloud computing? Well, as I just mentioned, a major reason is cost. With cloud computing, a person or a company eliminates a lot of the expense of buying their own hardware and software, along with the building, maintenance, and electricity it takes to run their own data center. So it would be more cost efficient to use a cloud instead. And another reason is reliability, because when you hire a cloud, the cloud provider is responsible for all of the data backup and disaster recovery. And if one of its data centers goes down, they will also have several redundant sites as a backup, which will ensure that there is no downtime. And another reason is scalability. Cloud providers will offer a pay-as-you-go method, where you can pay for only what you need. So whether you need to rent a few computers or a lot, it doesn't matter. So if you only want to rent a small amount of computers to start out, you can do that. But as your business expands, you have the option of instantly renting more computers to suit your needs. And if you don't need to rent as many computers, you can instantly scale back to renting only a few. So who are the cloud providers today? Well, the major cloud providers today are Amazon Web Services, or AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, Alibaba, and IBM, with Amazon Web Services being the biggest of them all, taking about a third of the cloud market share. In fact, one of AWS's biggest customers is Netflix. Netflix uses Amazon Web Services for nearly all of its computer and storage needs, including databases, analytics, video transcoding, and so on. So instead of building its own data center and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on hosting its own data, Netflix chose to outsource it to a cloud provider, which is Amazon. So a major advantage that Netflix has of using a cloud is that they don't have to worry about downtime, security, data backup, or the high cost of building and maintaining their own data center. They can just pay Amazon to do it for them. So this takes a tremendous burden off of Netflix, which allows them to focus on other things pertaining to their business. Now, there are three different types of cloud computing. There's infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, platform as a service, or PaaS, and software as a service, or SaaS. And these three vary in control and flexibility, so it's up to the user to decide what suits their needs. So the first one is infrastructure as a service. Now this type is basically where you're going to let the cloud provider manage a portion of your business, which is going to be the hardware portion. The cloud provider will manage the servers, storage, virtualization, and the networking portion. You, on the other hand, will still have control over the software portion, such as the applications, data, operating system, middleware, and runtime. Some examples of infrastructure as a service that the common person would use would be online data backup services, such as iDrive and Carbonite, that provide cloud storage. And the next one is called platform as a service. Now, PaaS, like IaaS, allows the cloud provider to manage a portion of your business, but the cloud provider has more control. In a PaaS, the cloud provider not only manages the hardware, such as servers, storage, and networking, but it also manages the operating system, middleware, and runtime. You, on the other hand, are only responsible for the applications and the data. And finally, there's software as a service, or SaaS. Now, this is probably the most common cloud service by far. In this type, all the applications are hosted by the cloud provider. There is no software to install on your computer and no hardware to manage. You just simply access and run the application from your computer when you connect to the cloud service through the internet. So the cloud provider manages all the hardware, software, networking, operating system, and storage. A good example of SaaS is something that I use all the time, which is Google Docs. Google Docs is a free online office suite that is accessed using a web browser. There is no additional software that needs to be installed on your computer to use Google Docs. Everything is accessed and managed from your web browser. So this concludes the video on cloud computing. Please subscribe and thank you for watching.
All right, so thank you for watching. This is a very important video. And one of the important things we have seen here is this particular building that we call a data center. If you have seen a data center before, or you have an idea of what a data center is, you realize that there are thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of servers in there. And that is where they manage the physical computers that keep the internet running. So what keeps the internet as we know it running are buildings like this. In these buildings, there are thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of servers. Yes, so what you are seeing here are racks, and within each rack, there are several servers, and they have unending rows of servers in these data centers. And these data centers, when it comes to AWS, are their edge locations. So later when we are treating the global infrastructure, you'll see the edge locations where their physical data centers are. And you will learn about the closest data center to you. What this means is that they have a real building that is closer to you. So we'll look at the closest one to you. And this means that this is where their workers are. So their workers are actually working in a physical building. Machines. They are actually working on physical devices. And maybe one day you get a chance to work with AWS and work in one of their data centers closest to you, or travel to one of their locations. All right. So this is very important, and we've learned a lot from this video. And the goal of this particular lesson is to help us understand cloud computing, get a basic understanding of the concept of cloud computing. And that is what we have been looking at. And so we will look at the final part of this particular lesson, and we'll end today's class. Tomorrow we will continue. And what is left is for us to have a general overview of the cloud service providers. By now, you know all the cloud service providers. This video, they mentioned 5. I don't know who can tell me one of them. At least I want to see all the 5 in the chat, but just type one that you remember. And let's not all talk about AWS. There are other, yes. So Lucretia says Alibaba, IBM. They are also cloud providers. But the top 3 are the GCP, the Azure, and AWS, of course. And in certain videos that you'll be watching, certain people you respect, they may pronounce things in a way that are different to you or are different from what you know. But if you just understand that it's just a pronunciation issue. So for Microsoft Azure, like I said, Microsoft calls it Azure. They don't call it Azure. They don't call it Azure. It's Azure. I was calling it Asia until I decided to go and find out. And I realized that it's Azure. So I started talking about Azure. And on Azure, there's one storage service on Azure that is called a blob storage. And once you get into Azure, you'll be using the Azure blob for your storage. For AWS, what service do we use for storage in AWS? I've already told you when we started. In Azure, it's called blob storage. In AWS, it's called the S3 or the S3 bucket. So after we get into AWS, we are going to look at the names AWS uses for their services. You are going to realize that there are a lot of names you are going to be hearing. And these are the names for their services. So for their storage, they have names for it. For their compute, they have names for it. For databases, they have names for it. And we just have to understand these terms. All right. So popular cloud service providers like Amazon Web Services, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, or GCP offer a range of services categorized into models like IaaS. So you can pronounce it IaaS or IaaS. And then IaaS stands for infrastructure as a service. Please type IaaS or IaaS in the chat for me. Then we have platform as a service, PaaS, or you can call it PaaS or PaaS, whichever one is easier. Then we also have software as a service, so type PaaS and SaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and each of them offers different levels of control and customization for users. So right now we are talking about the cloud providers. We've talked about the top three, with Amazon being the largest. And these three, I'm sure you remember every time. You don't even need it for the examination. The examination is all about AWS. And what you will need is how the cloud services are categorized. So there are several services that you can have access to on the cloud or from these cloud providers, but these services are categorized into models. So these models we'll be looking at after this slide, after the next slide. So this particular slide talks about AWS, which was launched in 2006 and provided by Amazon, was one of the first major cloud providers. They started first, one of the first, and has since become the largest and most widely adopted cloud platform in the world. So AWS is so large, and they are the biggest and largest cloud platform in the whole wide world. The whole wide world. Yes, so most cloud experts are required to focus on AWS. Some companies work with Microsoft systems. So if you work in such a company, then you have to export your knowledge from AWS to Azure so that you learn how it works in Azure. But to get into cloud computing, you need to get a basic understanding and start with AWS. So the types of cloud services, so cloud computing services are classified or categorized into three main types. So any service that you go in for through cloud computing, it belongs to one of these classifications. And they each offer different types of control and different types of management. So based on the one you are using, the level of control you will have will depend on what type of cloud service you are using. So we have infrastructure as a service, IaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, and software as a service, SaaS. So I'll explain this by talking about this particular diagram here. And the first one you see here is called on-premise IT or enterprise IT. And I like the way they've written legacy IT. Please type legacy in the chat for me. And in tech, sometimes you just come across certain terminologies like tonight, we have come across redundancy, we have come across latency, sometimes you come across hybrid, sometimes you come across legacy. And usually when you hear the term legacy, it refers to what is outdated. All right. So anytime you hear the term legacy in tech or in computing, it refers to what we used to use or what is out of date today. All right. So for enterprise IT, for on-premise IT, today they call it legacy IT, which means that no real, no serious, no modern company will still operate like this. Of course, sometimes you have to combine your cloud with on-premise. Of course, sometimes you have to combine, and for certain particular services, you may want to make use of on-premise. It's up to you. Nobody can stop you. But then when it comes to providing services to customers around the world and efficiency, everyone has moved to cloud. Yes, and you can also use cloud for virtual, for private cloud, where the cloud service they provide to you is private and done in a private way for you. And so you can use the cloud providers to set up a private cloud, which we'll get into later on. And in the past, the customer managed everything. So what do you see at the bottom here where my mouse is? My mouse is. I don't know if you see my mouse, but what do you see here? So those days when I started working at TV3, we were managing our own servers, we were doing our own networking. Everything in IT we had to do or needed to do, we're doing everything ourselves. But today, you don't have to do everything yourself. You don't even need to manage a data center anymore. Wow. And data center, when we say data center, we are not talking about something small. We're talking about a big building that requires 24/7 electricity, that requires several servers, that requires several professionals to manage, and a lot of technical people to keep the systems running. So in the past, large companies had their own data centers they manage. They manage their own networking. Inside the data center, we have a lot of networking done. If you've studied anything about networking, you need to network all the machines and you need to connect all of them to the internet as well. So you need experts in networking to make sure that the servers are properly networked, the routers, the cables, the access points, all the networking devices, the switches, everything, they are all working perfectly. You manage that. You also manage your storage, the servers that store your data, your NAS, all your drives, your disks, all your storage media, you have to manage them yourself. Your redundancy, the RAID storage, you need to do everything yourself. So you study about redundant array of independent disks. We call it RAID, redundant array of independent disks. We use that to create redundancy in storage so that if there is disaster or there is a failure, there is no downtime. So without redundancy, when there's a problem, you are off. Without redundancy, there can be a problem. For example, in the video we watched, we realized that there can even be a disaster and the customer will not even know that something happened because the cloud providers have redundant sites. So you handle your own servers and how to manage servers. I mean, the physical server is something else. You manage your own virtual machines. And when it comes to virtualization, the computing resources we use online, they are all virtual machines. So before you can get close to advanced IT like this, or you to handle cloud computers, you need to be very good with virtualizations, understand hypervisors and virtual machines and how all these concepts work. You know, in web hosting, we learned about virtual hosting, VPS hosting, virtual private service, and these virtual private servers are created through virtualization. So it's not like a dedicated server where you have to manage the actual server alone. But through VPS or virtual hosting, you have your hosting running on a virtual machine, a VM. All right. So this virtual machine, I really hope that last week you were introduced to virtual machines last week and you've heard of virtual machines and you have probably set up a virtual machine. And if you understand the concept of virtualization, you realize that on your Windows PC, you can set up virtual machines, allocate resources. So when we talk about virtualization, it goes beyond just enjoying the virtual machine, but you need to understand that you need to allocate hardware to your VM. You need to allocate storage, you need to allocate memory, even the CPU power, and you create a virtual computer. And then what do you do next after your virtual machine? After you set up a virtual machine, what do you do next? Who can tell me? What is next after choosing the resources for your virtual machine? What is next? I know one person will tell me. What is next? What do you do next? What do you do next? You install an operating system, okay? Yeah, so well done. Thank you very much. So last week, I think you were asked to install Kali Linux, I don't know, or Parrot OS or Linux or whatever. You know, once you set up a virtual machine on your Windows computer, if you have never tried it, please try it. It is an amazing thing to do. On your Windows computer, you can create a virtual computer and install a new operating system, log on to that operating system, use that operating system as if it's a real machine. Of course, it's a machine you created, but you created it through virtualization. It is something that every tech person needs to experience. If you have never created a virtual machine, then please, you are way behind. You have to create a virtual machine. You have to install an operating system through your VM, and then you manage your databases, you manage the security applications, everything. So on enterprise or on-premise computing, this is what we were doing. So all of this needed to be done. And out of all these layers, sometimes you need different experts to handle each of them. But today, cloud computing offers us cloud services in three models. This means that the cloud provider manages some of them, and then you can choose which one to manage. So if the service you are going in for is an IaaS service, this means that you are going to manage the operating system after the virtual machine has been created for you. Then you handle the database, the security, and the application on the system or the infrastructure that has been given to you. So with infrastructure as a service, you are going in for the infrastructure. With the platform as a service, apart from all that was done in the infrastructure, you have the operating system done for you, you have the databases done for you, you have security done for you, and what you have to do is the actual application and the data of the application. So we have the database system, and we also have the data that your application needs. Then the easiest one is a SaaS, software as a service, where that everything is done for you. You just use it. This is really interesting. This is really interesting. Now, when it comes to these three concepts, let's use a simple analogy to talk about them. Our time is almost up. We'll be closing in about 5 minutes, but let's talk about them. You know, when you want to build or you need a house, let's talk about a house. The goal is to have a place to stay. Okay? You can choose to build. Have you ever heard somebody building before? I'm just asking you strange questions, but just it's there for a reason. Have you ever heard someone building or seen someone building before? Of course. Now, what do you need to build? What do you need to build a house? What do you need to build? What's the first thing you need to build? Anybody? The first thing you need to build. Someone says cement. Please, you don't need cement. The first thing is the land. Okay, let's talk about the land. So if you, yes, if you go in for infrastructure as a service, you are giving the land. You are giving the land to build. And you know, if you are giving the land to build, what do you take care of? You take care of the architecture, how the building should look like. Is that part of your work? Yes. Because you are building, you have to design the house. You have to plan the house. You have to handle how everything will look. Then you will handle the building of the house, the roofing, the painting, the furnishing, to make sure everything is in order. And then you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do with the house. Okay. So in the comparing this to cloud computing, you have some basic things done for you. Just like the building, you are giving the land. But in the land with cloud computing, what does the service provider take care of? They take care of things that they make sure that are not part of your work. So you don't have to worry about them. For example, if you're going for IaaS, you don't have to worry about a data center. For this company, the cloud provider, they manage a data center. They take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. So data center should not be your problem. If you were doing on-premise IT, then you worry about data center. For now, they take that off the table. You don't worry about the networking. They take care of it for you. So if you are using cloud computing, you don't worry about networking, how to network the servers and all that. We have some cloud networking that we'll talk about later, but you see how that is done. But they take care of that for you. When it comes to storage, you don't have to worry about the SAN and the servers that take care of storage or that stores the data. The SAN is a storage area network that they set up. They handle that. When it comes to the actual machines, the servers they use, they take care of the actual servers. You don't have to worry about the servers. When it comes to the virtualization technology, you don't have to go and study virtualization. You don't have to set up the virtual machine. If you go in for AWS, let's say EC2, you may pick what and what you want, but then they will do the virtualization for you. They will set up the virtual machine for you. They will choose the actual physical servers to use for you. They have the machines for the storage for you. They do the networking for you. They handle the data center for you. So what do you do with infrastructure as a service? You have to, after the virtual machine is created, just like I asked you, what is next? You need to handle the operating system. I remember one time, I think the first time I bought a dedicated server, they gave me the server like that, and they said I should manage it. I said, what? I'm always used to cPanel. So I just go there, I go to my file manager, I go to my SQL databases, I set up my database, I upload my website, and I'm good to go. But this time they gave me a dedicated server with no operating system. Wow. This means I have to handle the operating system I'll use on it. I have to handle the database I will use. have to handle the security of the system in terms of setting up firewalls and other security. For example, to ensure that only your website serves your data and your images. No other website should be able to serve your data and your images. Then the website, I add the website to it. So if you go in for IaaS, you need to have the knowledge to be able to choose an OS and to install the OS yourself. You determine the OS you want. You determine the database you want. You determine how the security protocols and the security rules you want to set up on your infrastructure. You determine your application that you want to host. So something like EC2, that is how it is done. So some parts are taken for you. Platform as a service is like renting a house. Have you ever rented a house before? Renting a house, you didn't. I can see people still laughing. I didn't. I didn't ask you this time what you need to build a house. You see, if you want to rent a house, you don't build a house. You just rent an already built house. You didn't take care of the architecture. You didn't take care of the electricity. You didn't take care of the design. You didn't take care of anything. But what did you take care of? You took care of the things you will use. So you just brought in your things, you decorated the rooms how you want, and then you started using it. So if you go in for IaaS, you go in for only land and you will build everything. If you go in for PaaS, you go for an already built house. You have to handle what is inside. So what is inside the cloud service? It is the application you want to run. All right. So when it comes to websites, sometimes you can use a platform like WordPress.com. And this, I'm not talking about WordPress.org, where you have to host it, create your own domain and point it like we are used to. But WordPress.com, they give you the platform and you build on it. If you have used Wix before, they give you the platform, you build on it. Squarespace, they give you the platform, you build on it. So sometimes some of the cloud services, they give you everything. It's just a platform they give you, and you just build your application, you do your customization on it. You don't need a lot of technical details to handle it. And our time is up, so I'll talk about the last one and then we'll end over here. Have you ever rented or heard about a fully furnished house before? Fully furnished house. Have you ever heard or rented anything like that before? All right. So Christian says yes, Lucretia. Good to know that you are always following. So, like a fully furnished house, what do you do? After paying for the room, everything is there. Television is there, fridge is there, bed is there, sofa, everything. Wow. Maybe you've not experienced that before. You should try it one time. Everything is there. You just go and start using. So with software as a service, the cloud provider takes care of everything. You just use the software. All right, just use it. So something like Gmail has all of this technology behind it, and we just log in and we use. Okay, Google Drive, Microsoft 365, all of these things are already done. Everything from data center to software, everything is done by the cloud provider. You just go ahead and just start using it. Just use it. So we've been able to use buildings to explain these three. One is like a land where you build yourself. One is like a building you rented where you decorate. And one is like a fully furnished building. So with this, we have some basic understanding of cloud and cloud services. Let's wrap up the lesson with what is called cloud deployment models. So apart from deployment based on the service model, or apart from the cloud service model, we also have cloud deployment model, which is referred to, or which we refer to as public cloud, private cloud or hybrid cloud. So later on, we'll get into the details of the deployment models. But cloud computing, as you know it, is the public cloud. This means that the cloud provider is selling their services to the public. And their data centers and their global infrastructure are not there for you alone. You are not the only one on these systems. This means that a lot of people, a lot of companies all share in these systems. Of course, cloud provides advanced security, which we have gone through, but you have to understand that all that we have talked about, they are all public. Please type public in the chat for me. And when we say public, it is being used by multiple companies from multiple countries and individuals from all around the world. We are all sharing these resources. And those of you who have done the webmaster class, you understand that we have shared hosting, right? And of course, some companies can provide shared hosting at a very top class that there are no issues at all. So with the public cloud, there are no issues at all. And this is the cloud computing everybody knows. So once you say cloud computing, you are talking about public cloud computing. However, there are some organizations that operate with advanced sensitivity in terms of their data, in terms of their resources, in terms of what they need, in a way that they do not want to be on the public cloud. For example, governments want to protect their intelligence. They do not want any association with any other country sharing their data or being on their system. Certain companies like banks that are handling certain exclusively sensitive or extremely sensitive data decide not to be on public cloud. And so they opt for private cloud. So all that we have learned about cloud computing, and I've said again that they are public. But certain organizations choose private. What this means is that the company that is providing the cloud service will set up special machines, special networks, special data centers if it has to get to that level, special storage, special virtualization, special operating system, special everything dedicated to this client. That is called private cloud. So the government of Kenya or the government of Liberia can be on cloud, but would like to choose private cloud. It is more expensive to operate private cloud because the reason why cloud computing is cost effective is because of the cost sharing. We all share and we all pay. So they're able to charge less. So all the benefits of cloud computing we've been talking about, it is because the whole world make use of it. And so they are able to charge less. You understand this? They are able to charge less. And so if any company wants a private cloud, What this means is that they set up private infrastructure just for them. And these private infrastructure are built exactly with the same technology and the same efficiency as a cloud systems. Please, I asked a question, nobody has answered. Do you understand this? Okay, I'm going to close in 20 seconds since nobody has said anything. Sometimes these private clouds are set up on the premises of the organization for them by the cloud provider. And so they pay for the resources. It is very expensive to manage private cloud. But then once it is built for the organization, they get to use all the features of cloud computing and all the benefits of cloud computing. But it is built, is dedicated. So those of you who have done dedicated hosting, you really understand this. It's dedicated. It can be done on the premises of the cloud provider, sorry, of the clients, or it can be set up by the cloud provider in their own data centers, but dedicated. The same way you can buy shared hosting that is at the same data center as dedicated servers, but with a shared server, you are sharing with other companies, but with a dedicated server, it's dedicated to you. That is how private cloud works. So with a private cloud, the whole cloud infrastructure is dedicated to a client, either a government, either a bank, either a healthcare institution, or any organization that wants to be dedicated. So it's possible, all right? Then anytime in IT, in tech, when you hear hybrid is a mixture of the two. All right. So even though we want private, there are certain parts of our service, of our operations that we want to put on the private cloud. And there are certain that we want to put on private cloud. And so some companies can decide to use both public and private. And if you are using both private and public, how do we call you? Who can tell me? If you are using both public and private, what are you called? They are called hybrid. Thank you, Timothy. Timothy, I'm so impressed about your progress and so impressed about everything you're doing. And I want to find time and have a private chat with you to help you with your website issues because you are done. I want to see your work up. I can't wait to see that. So, on that note, talking about hybrid, this is where we bring our class to an end. Thank you so much for learning. Thank you for paying attention and going through the course. I believe you have learned something. If you have learned something, let me know in the chat. If today you have learned something new, let me know in the chats if you have learned something new. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I am still very busy with certain tasks that I'm working on for the class. And so either Wednesday or Thursday, we may have to have a combined class so that we use the time to, I use the time to continue my work. The reason I was off last week because of something very sensitive. We are almost there. So we may have a combined class either on Wednesday or Thursday, or we may miss one of the days within this week. And next week, everything goes back on course. So let's keep on learning. let's keep on learning and let's be ready. Let's be ready. Let's be ready. So we'll be designing some quiz for the lessons, and when they are ready, you will be given access to them. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure being in this class, and I'm going to see you in the next class. So thank you. All the best, and keep learning hard. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.